The danger was loud. It lived in steel and sparks, in alarms and stoppages, in robots frozen mid-motion, in a factory that felt less like a facility and more like a battlefield. Here's the promise. If Tesla nearly died twice, how did it become a 100B monster? How did it become the most valuable car maker in history? That doesn't happen by luck. It happens when a company stares into the abyss and refuses to blink. To understand Tesla, you have to understand the industry it tried to break. This is not an app store business. This is not shipping code at midnight. Car companies don't get infinite retries. They get one shot at reality, and reality charges interest. In manufacturing, cash is not a metric. It's oxygen. When you have it, you don't notice it. When it drops, everything changes. Suppliers get nervous. Shipments slow down. Quality suffers, rework piles up, and the burn rate starts to feel like gravity. Tesla wasn't just selling cars, it was selling the future. It was selling a story people wanted to believe. A story where gasoline was obsolete. A story where the old giants looked slow and out of touch. A story where Silicon Valley could reinvent Detroit. And that story worked, especially with the Roadster. The Roadster wasn't just a product, it was a signal. A sleek electric proof that this wasn't science fiction. It moved like a sports car. It felt like a tech keynote on wheels. It made people say, this is it. This is the future. From the outside, Tesla started to look inevitable. Magazine covers, late-night talk show jokes, celebrity test drives, a new kind of status around an electric badge, a feeling that the next era had arrived. The Roadster made Tesla look like a finished idea, but it was still a prototype wearing a tuxedo. It had to prove an impossible combination: performance, safety, range, and a brand new powertrain people didn't trust yet. That meant spending before certainty, engineering before revenue, testing before scale, and every solution created another problem: heat, weight, charging, supplier lead times, warranty exposure, and the simple fact that building hardware is slow. The Roadster also created a trap. Because it raised expectations faster than it raised capacity, it made Tesla famous before it made Tesla stable. So every delay became public, every miss became a headline, and every headline tightened the pressure inside the building. The outside saw a sleek machine, the inside saw a fragile supply chain, the outside saw a revolution, the inside saw invoices arriving like clockwork, but inside, the math was tightening because the future is expensive, the present always sends the invoice, and hardware punishes arrogance. The Roadster was hard. Not because the idea was wrong, because everything around it was unforgiving. Batteries, thermal management, safety testing, supplier schedules, warranty risk, service logistics. Every line item had teeth. A delayed component is a leak. A missed tolerance is a rework loop. A single defect becomes a recall nightmare. And every loop burns oxygen. Tesla was still small, still fragile, still learning what production really means. Not one car, not 10, hundreds, then thousands, with quality that can survive scrutiny. The public saw a breakthrough, the inside saw a treadmill, and the treadmill was speeding up. Then 2008 hit. 2008 didn't just hit startups, it hit everyone with a balance sheet. Big banks were fighting for survival, auto giants were shrinking, consumers were pulling back, and anything that smelled like risk was suddenly treated like poison. For Tesla, the timing was brutal because the company was early, too early to be safe, too early to be boring, too early to have reserves. It was trying to build a new category in the worst possible moment to ask for faith. This is what a credit freeze looks like on the inside. You stop hearing yes, you stop hearing no. You hear nothing. And nothing is the most dangerous answer, because you can't plan around nothing. You can't negotiate with nothing. You can only watch the calendar close in. Inside Tesla, meetings became triage. What can wait? What cannot? What breaks if we pause it? What breaks if we continue? Every decision becomes an argument with time, and the stakes were not theoretical. If the cash ran out, the company didn't pivot. A car company doesn't pivot, it stops. And the world's money system caught fire. This wasn't just volatility. It was fear becoming policy. It was banks protecting themselves by starving everyone else. It was credit lines frozen overnight. It was cautious investors turning into silent investors. It was the sound of doors closing without a slam. Lehman collapses, markets seize, headlines scream. But inside companies like Tesla, the crisis didn't feel dramatic. It felt empty, like calling and hearing nothing, like sending decks into the void, like watching runways shrink while your calendar stays full. Calls didn't fail loudly, they failed quietly. A meeting that would have happened last month was postponed. A term sheet that felt almost done disappeared. A promise became a vague reassurance. Reassurance became silence. Meanwhile, the factory still needed parts. The team still needed paychecks. The roadmap still demanded spending. And the balance sheet didn't care about belief. This is the trap of hype. The outside narrative makes collapse look impossible. But cash doesn't care what people think. Cash only cares what is due. At the center was Elon Musk, a leader wired for pressure, a man who treated deadlines like weapons, a man willing to bet everything on the idea that time could be bullied. In 2008, he did what most leaders only talk about. He put in his own money, not as a gesture, as a lifeline. He wrote checks to keep the company breathing. He invested his last personal millions. Later, he would describe himself as more than broke. That phrase matters because it is a psychological boundary. It means the safety net is gone. It means failure stops being abstract. It means you wake up already tired. And the countdown got worse. At one point, Tesla was 3 days away from bankruptcy. 3 days, not a metaphor. A number, a deadline you can hear in your chest. 3 days from the lights going out. 3 days from doors locking. 3 days from employees going home with no company to return to. When you're that close, every hour feels weaponized. Every email subject line becomes a heartbeat. Every phone vibration becomes a verdict. The room goes quiet in a different way, not calm, frozen, like everyone is listening for the moment the floor gives out. And then the calendar landed on Christmas Eve. Outside, the world was celebrating. Inside, people were waiting for the one thing that could keep them alive. A funding deal that had to arrive now, not next week, not tomorrow, now. That night was not glamorous, it was cold coffee and fluorescent hum. It was empty hallways and lit rooms. It was people staring at screens like they could will a decision into existence. It was the knowledge that if the answer didn't arrive, the story ended. Then it came through, the Christmas Eve funding, a last-second lifeline. The kind that doesn't feel like victory. It feels like air returning after you've been underwater too long. Tesla lived, and survival left a mark. And survival. Because when you survive by seconds, you learn a dangerous lesson. You learn that the last moment can still work. You learn that reality can be negotiated if you push hard enough. You learn that running at the cliff's edge can become normal. Years later, that lesson returned, in a louder form. Because the second near-death wasn't about banks. It was about the factory. 2008 was silent. 2017 was industrial. Tesla had a new mission: go mass market, turn a story into volume. turn admiration into throughput. And the Model 3 was the bet. Wall Street pressure added a second soundtrack, short sellers circling, analysts questioning timelines, fans demanding deliveries, critics saying it was all a show. And inside Tesla, every one of those voices became a clock. Because the Model 3 wasn't just a product, it was a promise that Tesla could scale, a promise that EVs could be mainstream, a promise that the company could be more than a headline. And promises are expensive. They force decisions. They force speed. They force risk. They force you to choose between what is safe and what is necessary. The Model 3 was supposed to change everything. It was designed to turn Tesla into a mainstream company. A car people could actually buy, a car that could scale, a car that could pay for the future. And millions watched it like a cultural event. Reservations surged. Expectations skyrocketed. The outside world treated it like destiny. Analysts wrote forecasts. Fans counted delivery numbers like sports stats. The narrative became enormous. Inside the factory, it became a trap. Because Musk didn't just want to build cars. He wanted to build a system that built cars. He wanted extreme automation. He wanted speed beyond human limits. He wanted the alien Dreadnought, a machine that built machines. A factory so advanced it looked like the future manufacturing itself. The idea is seductive. Robots don't get tired. Robots don't complain. Robots don't call in sick. Robots don't need sleep. But robots also don't improvise. They don't adapt gracefully. They don't handle messy reality with common sense. And mass manufacturing is messy reality. So the robots slowed, then they jammed, then they failed. Arms froze mid-step, sensors misread, tools missed by inches, stations backed up, rework piled up, the line stopped, then restarted, then stopped again, and every stoppage was money burning in real time. There is a particular kind of panic that only exists in manufacturing. It's not a bad quarter, it's not a stock dip, it's a physical clock, a system consuming cash while producing nothing, a furnace eating oxygen. Production hell wasn't one failure, it was hundreds of small failures, stacked, a station that ran 10 seconds too slow, a part that arrived 10 hours too late, a sensor that drifted out of calibration, a quality check that found something you couldn't ignore, a rework loop that stole capacity, a bottleneck that moved every time you tried to solve it. And the cruel part is this: you don't burn cash only when you make mistakes, you burn cash when you try to fix them. You pay for overtime, you pay for scrap, you pay for expedited shipping, you pay for stress, you pay for time. At the height of production hell, Tesla was burning cash at a terrifying rate. A number like $6,500 per minute becomes a way to describe the pain, not per day, per minute. When cash burns that fast, time becomes the enemy again, the same enemy from 2008, just wearing a different mask. This time, the crisis was loud enough to hear. Metal clanging, alarm chirps, forklifts rushing, weld flashes lighting exhausted faces. A factory that never truly slept, because the runway didn't allow sleep. So Musk moved in, literally. He slept on the factory floor, on concrete, near the line, sometimes wearing the same clothes for days, eating when he could, resting when the line allowed it, running on adrenaline and obligation, not for myth, not for cameras, because when you are that close to failure, the story becomes irrelevant. Only output matters, only throughput matters, only the next working station matters. And then the low point arrived, the truth that cut through everything else. Tesla was within a month of bankruptcy. Within a month. That's close enough for the future to disappear. Close enough for suppliers to panic. Close enough for investors to demand answers. Close enough for a company to start shrinking into survival mode. This is where the story changes again, because the pivot wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a new invention. It wasn't a single genius breakthrough. It was subtraction. It also meant rebuilding the factory's rhythm, not as a futuristic ballet, as a war room with a conveyor belt, more humans at critical stations, more manual checks where sensors lied, more simple tools where complex robots stalled. In some cases, the upgrade was going backwards. Manual assembly, hand-guided alignment, humans doing what machines couldn't do reliably under chaos. And it meant making the story smaller. Stop chasing the perfect factory. Start chasing the next car, then the next, then the next, until output finally outran fear. Because in manufacturing, momentum is not a feeling, it is a number. Cars per hour, cars per day. And whether that number is rising or dying. Removing what wasn't working. Powering down robots that were too slow. Pulling automation out of steps it couldn't handle. Admitting that the perfect system wasn't shipping. And choosing the imperfect system that did. Adding humans, adding hands, adding experience. Adding the kind of real-time adaptation robots didn't have. Simplifying processes, standardizing stations, fixing bottlenecks one by one, not chasing perfection, chasing survival. Because the only thing that beats burn is output, not hype, not ambition, output. One station at a time, one process at a time, one night at a time. The line begins to breathe again, not elegantly, not flawlessly, but steadily. And in that steadiness, Tesla finds something more valuable than a perfect dream. It finds momentum that can be repeated. It finds a path out of the abyss, not by ignoring reality, by submitting to it, by doing the ugly work. That's the real lesson. Tesla didn't survive because of luck. It survived because it made a brutal choice, survival over perfection. In theory, perfection looks clean. In reality, survival is what ships. Capital is oxygen. That's lesson one. You can have vision, you can have demand, you can have a product people cheer for, but without oxygen, none of it matters. Because the real deadlines aren't on your roadmap. They're on invoices, they're on payroll, they're on supplier contracts, they're on the day your bank stops returning calls. And here is the warning modern business keeps forgetting. Survivor bias is a liar. Look at modern business and you can see the same pattern repeating. A boom makes risk feel normal. Easy money makes timelines feel flexible. Success stories flood the feed and erase the graves beneath them. Then the cycle turns. Rates rise, liquidity dries, and companies learn, again, that oxygen is not guaranteed. This is why runway is not a startup cliche. It is a manufacturing law. Whether you build cars or code, the clock is always there. The only difference is how loudly it ticks. Software failures can be patched. Hardware failures sit in warehouses and on highways. They come with tow trucks, lawyers, and reputational scars. Tesla's survival was not a single miracle. It was a chain of choices made under pressure. Cut the non-essential, delay the ego projects, fix the bottleneck you can touch, ship the version that works, and keep shipping until the numbers stop bleeding. That mindset is uncomfortable because it forces you to trade dreams for discipline. It forces you to accept that perfect can be a form of procrastination. It forces leaders to ask a question that sounds simple and feels brutal. What keeps us alive this week? And the answer is rarely glamorous. It is payroll. It is supplier trust. It is quality control. It is throughput. It is the boring, repetitive work that turns chaos into process. Tesla did not become a monster by avoiding fear. It became a monster by converting fear into systems, by turning panic into checklists, by turning breakdowns into redesigns, by turning survival into a habit. That is why the story matters now. Not because every company should copy Tesla, but because every company will eventually face its own version of the abyss. A quarter where the market disappears, a launch where the product breaks, a month where cash turns into sand. And the final irony is this: the same risks that nearly killed Tesla also made it undeniable. When it survived, the market rewarded the proof, not the promises. Proof that it could build, proof that it could scale, proof that it could endure pressure that would break a normal company. That proof became confidence, and confidence became capital. And capital became the engine that pushed Tesla into a new category. Just because Tesla survived doesn't mean the method is safe. For every story that ends in dominance, there are thousands that end in silence. The same boldness, the same risk, the same all-in posture. But no Christmas Eve deal, no pivot in time, no recovery. So don't worship the bet. Study the cost. Study the moments where the story almost ended. Study the point where leadership had to choose between ego and survival. Now return to the promise. How did a company that almost died twice become a 100B monster? It did it by learning what most companies refuse to learn, that the future is not a speech. It is execution. It is repetition. It is pain turned into process. Tesla stared into the abyss, and it didn't blink. Not in 2008, not in 2018. It learned that confidence is expensive, and survival is the price of admission. That's the paradox. A company becomes a monster not by avoiding danger, but by walking into it fully awake and walking back out with proof. Twice, Tesla was close enough to death to hear it breathing. If you want more stories where money, power, and psychology collide, subscribe to Capital Story Works.